Okay, here, let's try this again. I tried recording a minute ago, so I did put a new link up on the Facebook group page. I think what happened is I had a video, or I had another or an additional YouTube page opened, so it started playing while I was still recording, so it was giving me kind of a headache. Anyway, I closed that, and here we are. So Chapter 4, Awakening the Intuitive Eater Stages. This is a really, really great chapter to start off with and to review a couple times if you need to kind of refresh and help you keep the vision of what this really is going to turn into and become for you. So the authors talk a lot about how different the intuitive eating process is from the dieting process, and that it's good to compare it to like a long marathon or cross-country hiking trip, because it's a process and it takes a lot longer. There are a lot of twists and turns that you're going to go through. It's not a straight up journey. And but they give the analogy of being a hiker and going, on a beautiful trail, and there's a fork in the road, and you take the right side, and you see these beautiful things in nature, like this green caterpillar, and you see this tree, and have these moments where you just really are enjoying the process of being in the mountains, in nature. But then up ahead on the trail, you see a big boulder that's blocking the trail, so you realize you took the wrong turn. So you turn around and go back to the fork and take the other way. And they say, would you really, as a hiker in nature, would you be upset and frustrated and discouraged that you took the wrong trail? Or would you feel like it was still a gift because of the things that you discovered and saw while you were taking the wrong turn? And they say that intuitive eating is a lot like this. And I feel exactly the same way, because there are so many different circumstances and events and experiences that you have that are so unique from the dieting process, because they're free from all of that, and so you're having to relearn how to listen to your body and honor it, and so they talk about how when you go through these processes and you have moments where you feel doubtful or discouraged, or you feel like you're out of control or whatever, to just have faith in the process and cherish those moments, those learning experiences, because that's exactly what they are. And the more that we can freely accept those experiences as gifts for learning and getting in tune with ourselves, the faster we are going to reach our ultimate goal of being a true intuitive eater. And so it's a great section to read if you haven't already. Let's see if there's anything else in this intro that I wanted to talk about. They mention how important it is to really focus on the present moment, and they do make a note in here that they want to address, and I'll just read it to you. They say, at this point, we feel it is important to clarify the issue of the pursuit of weight loss. For some, your body will return to its natural weight level, which may be lower than your current weight, and remain there. To see if this applies to you, ask yourself the following questions. Have you routinely eaten beyond your comfortable fullness level? Do you routinely overeat when you're getting ready for your next diet, knowing that there will be a lot of foods you won't be allowed to eat on the diet? Do you overeat as a coping mechanism in difficult times, or to fill up time when you're bored? Have you also been resistant to exercise? Do you only exercise when you are dieting? Do you skip meals or wait to eat until you're ravenously hungry, only to finally overeat when you finally do eat? Do you feel guilty either when you overeat or when you eat what you call a bad food, which results in more overeating? If you answered yes to some or all of these questions, then it's likely that your present weight may be higher than the weight your body is meant to maintain. It is also likely that you will be able to return to your natural healthy weight as a result of this process. But remember, weight loss must, in all capital letters, be put on the back burner. If you focus on weight loss, it will interfere with your ability to make choices based on your intuitive signals. And I wish there was a way that I could take this message and convey it in a way that would just make it solidify right here and in your heart as soon as you hear these words. But I know that it is a process, and some, depending on how engrossed the dieting mentality is in you, for some it may be really difficult to let the weight portion go. I've even seen in some books that they say to put your scale away, put all measurement tools away for weight, or if you do have a scale, to just tape a piece of paper on the gauge or the numbers part with your, natural. Actually, I don't even know if I would recommend that. But basically, we have to remember that we're reworking the way our mind thinks, and therefore the way our body behaves, the way we behave with food and with regards to our body image. So please trust their advice to put weight on the back burner and realize that if you really want to become an intuitive eater, and those questions, aren't those amazing? So, and I have to say that they're being very sensitive with the questions they're asking, because there are, many people out there who are underweight and still have a diet mentality and feel like they need to lose weight. And so they're being very sensitive to that. This book, like I said before, has been used in very successful eating disorder inpatient, outpatient centers. But they do make note that if you have any of these behaviors, yes, as you approach intuitive eating, you will reach your natural healthy weight. So that is exciting. And let's see. Oh, so they say that over the years, they have seen their patients go through a 5-stage progression in learning how to become an intuitive eater. Okay, so this is kind of our roadmap to what our journey is going to look like based on a lot of other people's experiences. Realizing that every one person is different, comes from different backgrounds, experiences, circumstances, and so this isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all progression. But again, the more you put your faith in this process, the more you give yourself permission to implement these principles the way the authors recommend, the faster and more successful you'll be on this intuitive eating journey and process. So I want to give that plug in again. Okay, I'm just going to summarize briefly what these stages are, but again, read this chapter, and I'd love to hear what thoughts you have from it. It's really good. So stage 1, this is when people are getting to the point where they're just ready. So it's called readiness and hitting diet bottom. There are lots of feelings of failure, just despair, discouragement, feelings of fear. People in this stage have often completely lost touch with what their biological hunger cues are and what their fullness signals feel like. Your relationship with food has developed a negative tone, and it's not unusual to find that you eat to comfort, distract, or even numb yourself from your feelings. You typically have a negative body image, and you don't like the way you look and feel in your body. Your self-respect is lessened, and this stage continues until you decide that you're unhappy eating and living this way. You are ready to do something about it. Your first thoughts may veer toward finding a new diet to solve your problems, so recognize that that is a natural thing. But almost immediately you realize that you just can't do that one ever again. If this is where you find yourself, then you are ready for the process that will bring you back to intuitive eating, back to eating intuitively. Stage number 2 is the exploration stage, conscious learning and pursuit of pleasure. They kind of forewarn that this stage might feel like you're in a state of hyperconsciousness, to help reacquaint yourself with intuitive signals of hunger, taste preferences, and satiety. There's so much learning to do in this phase. You're studying about the principles, you're working on the faith building and rejecting the diet mentality and not going there again. And so they talk about how when you first start learning how to drive a car and you put the key in the ignition and you're in driver's ed, you've got your instructor next to you, you hyper-consciously are thinking of every single step of putting the key in the ignition, looking in the mirrors, slowly backing out, all of those things you have to think so much about. And so some people get a little bit frustrated, honestly, in this stage because They're just thinking so much more about all of their decisions and about what taste they prefer in any given moment, and whether or not they're really hungry or whether or not they're starting to feel full and all those things. And so just remembering to be patient and try and just be relaxed and enjoy this process is going to be really helpful during this stage, and realize that it is necessary. It is necessary to relearn and retrain and reprogram your mind and your body in order to become sensitive in honoring those intuitive signals. So it does say obsessive thinking is pervasive and is characterized by worry. It fills your mind during most of the day and keeps you from thinking of much else. Says you may feel this way most of the time during this stage. This may feel uncomfortable at first and perhaps even strange. Remember, much of your previous eating was either mostly mindless or diet directed. But it does say in this stage you'll begin to make peace with food by giving yourself unconditional permission to eat. This part may feel scary, and you may choose to move slowly within your comfort level. You will learn to get rid of guilt-induced eating and begin to discover the importance of the satisfaction factor with food. The more satisfied you are when eating, the less you think about food when you're not hungry, and you will no longer be on the prowl. Okay, so remembering this is just a really good process. Unlimited permission, and it really does get kind of fun when you've talked to people who first start on this journey, and I remember these experiences so clearly, and talking about them with my sister, it becomes really exciting to start thinking about what is it that I'm really feeling like or really want at this time, and your satisfaction levels do go up. It says that if you've been previously gaining weight, weight gain usually ceases or is limited to just a few pounds during this stage. If you've been using food emotionally, you may find that you'll begin to feel your feelings and may experience discomfort, sadness, or even depression at times. So definitely think about ways that you can reach out for support, and there are some ideas in the Managing Emotions Without Using Food chapter. But this is something that I have felt off and on at different times, noticing how much more I just can be uncomfortable when something hard is going on versus when I used to turn to food more often to just kind of take the edge off or even numb myself sometimes. It does say that the bulk of your eating may be foods that are heavier in fat and sugar. So you've been heavily deprived, oftentimes if you've been a yo-yo dieter up until this point. And so those are going to be the things that you crave a lot. And remembering again that that is natural. You need to allow your body to do this and trust that it will reach a state of equilibrium again. But it has to be given that permission, that experience to completely be free in deciding what it wants. So it says the way you eat during this stage will not be the pattern that you will establish or want for a lifetime. So remember, this is brief, and the key is if you can enter this stage without feeling scared, well, there's going to be fear there, but for a lot of you, but without letting that fear prevent you from giving yourself that unlimited permission, you will progress through the stage much faster. And so that's a really important key to remember. Okay, stage 3 is called crystallization. It says in this stage you'll experience the first awakenings of the intuitive eating style that has always been part of you but was buried under the debris of dieting. You have a greater sense of trust, both in your right to choose what you really want to eat and in the fact that your biological signals are dependable. In this stage, you're going to be honoring your hunger most of the time. So you're never going to go a long time without eating food for the sake of losing weight or for the sake that you're scared of eating your next meal because you overate the last one. It's important that you honor your hunger signals every time that you feel them. And if you aren't feeling them right now, I think I mentioned in the last webinar that you do want to, if you've been an extreme dieter for a long period of time, you want to make sure to try and feed your body every 3 to 4 hours, just even if it's small, just to kind of stoke the metabolism so that it can start ultimately recognizing what it feels like to be nourished on a consistent basis. And they say how that it can be a necessary step for some people to start truly feeling what a real hunger signal feels like. You continue to make peace with food in this stage of crystallization. It says if you've been an emotionally cued eater, you'll become quite adept at separating biological hunger signals from emotional hunger. Because of this clarity, more often than not, you will be experiencing your feelings and finding ways to comfort and distract yourself without the use of food. And it says again, remember to put weight loss on the back burner. Far more important than weight loss is the sense of well-being and empowerment that begins to take place. You won't feel helpless and hopeless anymore. You'll begin to respect your body and understand that if you're over your natural weight, it's a result of dieting mentality rather than lack of willpower. Okay, now stage 4 gets exciting. The intuitive eater awakens. And by the time you reach this stage, all of the work you've been doing culminates in a comfortable, free-flowing eating style. Isn't that amazing? That is what we all want, right? We're surrounded by food all the time. It's in our home. We have to feed our families. We have to feed ourselves. We're around it for social gatherings. And to know that it can be, or that, how does it say? That we can be comfortable and have a free-flowing eating style. That, to me, is why I started this book, this group study, or the study group, is because the idea of freedom in my life has become such a prominent theme. And anyway, and this has just been such a huge tool for that. So it says you consistently choose what you really want to eat when you're hungry, because you know that you can have more food of your choosing whenever you are hungry. It's easy to stop eating when you feel comfortably full. You may begin to find that you choose healthier foods not because you think you should, but because you feel better physically when you eat this way. And the urgent need to prove to yourself that you can have previously forbidden foods will have diminished. So you truly know and trust that these foods will always be there, and if you really want to eat them, you can, so they lose their alluring quality. And I just got to put a plug in there because I got the new edition of this book recently, and I hadn't read the chapter until I got this new book that's all about how to raise intuitive eaters. And if any of you have children that you are raising that you feel like maybe there are some issues there, it's such an amazing chapter to read, and it's been a great reminder to me. And I actually, even though I've been trying to practice intuitive eating for the past 5-6 years, I realize I have still been exerting a little bit of too much control with my own kids. And I thought I was pretty flexible, but I realized, oh my goodness, I am not showing them that they can trust themselves. I'm still making decisions for them with regards to amounts or what foods and things like that. And so that's a really new concept for a lot of parents, I think. But it's even in just a week's time of implementing these principles with my kids has been amazing to see the freedom and autonomy and happiness that they feel, that I'm not constantly managing what they're eating. And also, I've told you before that I discourage a little bit skipping ahead to the back of the book until you've really worked through these previous principles. But I do recommend reading that chapter on raising intuitive eaters because it helped me solidify so much some of the causes and effects that my upbringing or whatever outside influences had on me and my perception of my body and my eating habits and things like that. And so even though I don't want you to skip ahead for the purpose of trying to go through this process faster than what you naturally are able to, reading that chapter at the end is so profound and just solidifying in yourself how important and how influential these principles are as you implement them, even from the age of a child. Okay, so what did I say? I was thinking about how it just said that your need for the forbidden foods has diminished because you know that they're always there and that you can always have them. So that reminded me of my children. Okay. Chocolate starts to take on the same emotional connotation as a peach. You won't need to test yourself anymore, and your deprivation backlash with food will be gone. It says, when you do choose the foods you used to restrict, you will get great pleasure and feel satisfied with a much smaller quantity than ever before and without guilt. When you feel guilty eating a food, it takes away much of the pleasure from eating. If coping with your feelings had been difficult for you, you will be less afraid to experience them and become more adept at sitting with them. So it looks like in each stage, if your tendency has been to be an emotional eater even before you started dieting, that starts diminishing and becomes less and less as you progress through each stage. Your food talk and self-talk will be positive and non-critical. Your peace pact with food is firmly established. You have released any conflict or leftover guilt about food choices that you've carried around. At this point, and if it's meant to be, your body will be on its way to approaching its natural weight. So at this point, a lot of those behaviors that were formed in those questions earlier about whether or not you often eat past your fullness level, or you do a lot of Last Supper eating before you think you're going to go on a diet, or you stay hungry a lot longer than you should, all those behaviors have been diminished. And so if your body has weight to lose, it will start doing that. Stage 5 is the final stage, and they call it Treasure the Pleasure. At this point, your intuitive eater has been reclaimed. You will trust your body's intuitive abilities, and it will be easy to honor your hunger and respect your fullness. Finally, you will feel no guilt about your food choices or quantities. Because you feel good about your relationship with food and treasure the pleasure that eating now gives you, you will discard unsatisfying eating situations and unappealing foods. And this can be a really fascinating phase or stage to be in, the final stage. If you've been a yo-yo dieter or a chronic overeater or emotional eater, to be able to have food around you and have no second thoughts as to whether or not you want it, if you're already full because you've eaten recently, or for whatever reason your body's just not giving you the hunger cue, you don't eat just because it's there. And that is so empowering to feel that way. I think you hear so many people talk about that, how they have no willpower to resist desserts, and so they just don't have them in their house or have them around them, or they don't go to that certain table at a business party or social gathering. And so to know that you can be completely in tune and just have no guilt, worry, fear is so amazing. It says you will want to experience eating in the most optimal of conditions and not taint it with emotional distress. So you begin learning how to really take care of other emotional issues, and to the point that you enjoy eating so much that you want to honor the eating experience as almost a sacred experience that isn't allowed to be interrupted with stress or busy schedule or whatever. You start making it a priority. It says because your eating style has become a source of pleasure rather than an affliction, you'll experience nutrition and movement in a different way. It talks about exercise and how you start becoming open. And I think I'd even mentioned before, that I started running recently, and to be able to start exercising on a consistent basis and wake up early in the morning without any thoughts whatsoever about doing it to lose weight or to tone up or change my body shape, makes it so enjoyable, and I know my body's getting the health benefits as well. It says, likewise, nutrition will no longer be another mechanism to make you feel bad about the way you eat. Instead, it becomes a path to feeling as physically good and healthy as you can. So the interesting thing is, as you begin giving yourself permission to really get in tune with what you are wanting, what you're craving, what your body's telling you that you want to eat every time you're hungry, it takes a little bit of time, and it takes that unlimited permission, but ultimately you will start noticing how your body feels after eating certain foods. Not because of weight gain or because of thinking that you're going to gain weight or feeling like you have gained weight, but because you will literally start paying attention to the energy levels, the way your digestive system feels, and you will start wanting to explore and start craving healthier foods, because there's now no monitor over your shoulder telling you what's good and what's bad and making you want to rebel against it. And so it says when you reach the final stage, your weight will settle into what is natural for you, a place that is comfortable and appropriate for your height and body frame. At last, you will feel empowered and protected from outside forces telling you what and how much to eat and how your body should look. You will feel free from the burden of dieting, and you will be an intuitive eater once again. And they say once again because I love how they say that we are intuitive eaters as babies. And if we were left alone and given plenty of options of what to eat and had no voices telling us that we were eating too much or that we were getting fat or that we were whatever, that we would be intuitive eaters. And so how cool that we can still rediscover that and become that again. The last part is you can do it. These stages and the changes that occur with your eating and thoughts may seem impossible, or it might seem too scary. For example, the thought of giving yourself unconditional permission to eat may seem terrifying, and you might fear that you will never stop eating or gaining weight. I know this is a very, very common fear among people that have tried this. And I will say that that is often, I think, what has caused, I've told you that I've known some people close to me who have started to try this and then stop and go back to the dieting mentality and kind of stay where they're at for a number of years. Because they're scared of the weight gaining part, and they don't trust that you can really give yourself permission to eat what you want when you're hungry and not gain a bunch of weight. Anyway, so you might fear that. The remainder of the book explains in great detail how to implement each principle, why it is needed, and the rationale behind it. You will also learn how other chronic dieters became intuitive eaters and how it changed their lives. So it's great because these chapters have really awesome stories. By the time you finish reading this book, you will know that you too can become an intuitive eater and stop the madness of dieting. So hopefully, for any of you that watch this, you've started reading this, try and catch up to where we are. I haven't gone over this chapter 5 yet. How am I on time? I'm already a half an hour in, so I think I might just read the overview of this chapter, even though I mentioned it last week. And just encourage you to read it again. Maybe I'll post some things online. But it talks about the whole process of how to reject a dieting mentality, why dieting doesn't work, and the different steps to do that. It's a really, really important chapter. So study that in depth. And so it is principle number 1, rejecting the diet mentality. Throw out the diet books and magazine articles that offer you false hope of losing weight quickly, easily, and permanently. Get angry at the lies that have led you to feel as if you were a failure every time a new diet stopped working and you gained back all of the weight. If you allow even one small hope to linger that a new and better diet might be lurking around the corner, it will prevent you from being free to rediscover intuitive eating. So, if I haven't made that point enough in this webinar of putting your trust and faith in this process, reading this book through and implementing these principles, and not entertaining the thoughts of going and looking for a new and faster diet, I promise you, you will enjoy this experience so much, and it will free you up more than you have ever imagined being able to feel. And so, anyway, that's I feel like I'm always on a soapbox when I'm giving these webinars, but that's how I feel, and that's how lots of other people feel that have really put this to the test, and it just makes me so excited for those of you who have reached out and said that you want to learn about these principles in this process. So without further ado, I am going to leave this chapter to you to study. It's not terribly long, but it's a good size, and it's just really good. So, okay, there is a chart on here that I think I will post on Facebook. Just has a little chart on the summary of the diet mentality versus the non-diet mentality. So that'll be kind of a good reminder to help us practice. So as you read that, that first principle of rejecting the diet mentality, this little chart that I'll post on the Facebook group page, I'd love you to utilize it and kind of use it as your gauge this week. So as we go over these principles, I wish that we could take an entire month per principle, and maybe I'll do that sometime in the future. But I do the best you can to focus on one principle at a time, and I know we're going to be going over 2 each week, and so it really can feel kind of rushed. But without having to take too much time, just remember that if you are struggling with a certain principle, or you get to principle and you're feeling like it is just not working, it's too scary, or you are going back to old patterns of thinking and wanting to start another diet, I recommend that you go back to the previous principle and see if you've really been able to adopt it or not fully, and realize that these webinars will be recorded, and you've got the book that will always be there. And so you can take a little break and just focus on that principle. And if you need to do that, do it for how long you need. And that's what the book says. For some people, it's several days. For some others, it's several weeks, several months. And I think several months is pretty much the max, I would imagine, unless someone is really just constantly going back to diet mentality and not fully rejecting that part. So remember that principle. I will post that chart for you to use as a reference this week as you practice rejecting the diet mentality. And I would love to hear what some of your experiences are like. So please reach out and share, and we will see you next week. Okay, have a great night.